of Jamuna River erosion in Bangladesh.
Oh my gosh! This is a bad idea to be on this boat!
Did in the same direction, forming what looked like a single living wave. Experts laying this mysterious entity floating in the air. At first, it seemed as if a word left them speechless. A massive statue of a minotaur standing nestled within the Rio Pinturas Canyon. It holds thousands of stenciled handprints that...
While the world watches wars, markets, and political noise, something far older is unfolding, where Scripture warned the last signs would surface. Along the Euphrates, earthquakes are tearing the riverbed open. Sealed caverns are being exposed, and entire regions report sounds rising from the water after midnight. Animals are fleeing without reason. Authorities grow silent. These events are not isolated, they align. This channel follows those alignments with biblical clarity and careful observation. If you value discernment over distraction, like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay ahead of unfolding developments that point not to fear, but to awareness, preparation, and urgency. Recent earthquakes striking the regions surrounding the Euphrates basin are not merely geological incidents measured by instruments. They are movements that alter the land in visible, irreversible ways. Ground fractures have appeared along the riverbed and surrounding terrain, splitting soil that had remained stable for generations. Entire sections of land have collapsed inward, tearing open entrances to underground caverns that were previously sealed and unseen. Locals report cracks forming in places where no weakness had ever been observed. This is not gradual erosion, it is sudden division. The Euphrates is no longer simply receding, as has been widely reported in recent years. It is breaking apart. Riverbanks fail. Bedrock shifts. What was once hidden beneath layers of earth is now being forced into the open. Scripture consistently shows that when God moves toward judgment or revelation, the earth responds first. Mountains tremble. Valleys split. Foundations give way. These physical responses are not random. They are reactions to authority. Throughout the Bible, earthquakes function as signals rather than disasters alone. At Sinai, the ground shook when God descended. At the crucifixion, the earth quaked as the veil was torn. At the resurrection, an earthquake marked divine intervention, not destruction. In each case, the shaking was not the point, it was the announcement. God was acting, and creation reacted accordingly. As the newly exposed caverns beneath the Euphrates came into view, attention quickly shifted from the collapse itself to what was revealed inside. Witnesses describe a massive stone statue standing upright within one of the opened chambers, far larger than any human proportion, carved with deliberate symmetry and positioned with unmistakable intent. Locals identify the figure as Minur, an ancient guardian associated with protection, restraint, and sealed thresholds. Whether the name is accurate or not, the role the statue appears to serve is difficult to ignore. The figure does not face outward, as monuments meant to intimidate or display power often do. Instead, it faces inward, toward deeper passageways within the cavern system. This orientation suggests guarding, not warning, standing watch over something concealed rather than confronting intruders. The posture is rigid and unmoved, as if frozen in duty. Surrounding stone surfaces show no visible marks from modern tools. There are no signs of recent excavation, reinforcement, or interference. The chamber appears untouched, as though it had remained sealed until the earth itself forced it open. In Scripture, guardians are not symbolic decorations. Cherubim were placed at Eden's gate to block access after judgment. Angels were assigned to restrain forces until appointed times. Barriers exist not because God fears what lies beyond them, but because humanity is not prepared to encounter what has been restrained. When something is guarded, it means timing matters. The existence of a guardian figure beneath a river, repeatedly associated with end-time prophecy, raises unavoidable questions. Why was such a structure placed there? Why was it hidden beneath layers of earth and water rather than elevated? And why is it emerging now, coinciding with seismic activity rather than human discovery? Biblical precedent shows that what God seals, He alone unseals. Human hands do not decide the moment of exposure, divine authority does. Its size suggests it was not created for reverence or worship by common people. It was not meant to be seen frequently, if at all. It was meant to stand, endure, and restrain. Scripture describes ancient works that were set in place until a future hour, preserved through ages not by secrecy alone, but by command. This revelation is not entertainment. It is a signal. Exposure does not mean release, but it does mean proximity. And proximity demands discernment. If you are sensing that these events are connected, stay with this message. Because what has been guarded for ages is not surfacing without purpose. Deeper within the exposed caverns, the stone itself begins to speak. Walls once sealed by earth and water are now revealed to be covered in carvings, human hands etched directly into the rock. They are not arranged with artistic balance or ceremonial order. They appear clustered, uneven, overlapping one another as if pressed into the stone in moments of urgency. Some hands are fully formed, others are distorted, incomplete, or stretched beyond natural proportion, as though the stone recorded not only shape, but strain. These are not decorative markings. There is no pattern of worship, no symbolic repetition, no aesthetic intent. The carvings convey movement, desperation, and fear. Witnesses who approach the walls describe an overwhelming sense of dread, an instinctive response that arises before conscious thought. Many report the urge to step back, not because of imagination, but because the space itself feels charged with memory. Scripture often uses hands as symbols of action, authority, and fate. Raised hands can signify surrender or appeal. Outstretched hands can mark judgment, restraint, or sealing. In prophetic imagery, hands reaching outward are frequently associated with confinement, those who cannot escape but can still reach. These carvings echo that imagery with unsettling precision. There are no accompanying symbols explaining the scene, no inscriptions naming gods or rulers, no instructions, only hands. This absence of explanation is significant. When Scripture records acts of judgment or restraint, it often leaves behind signs rather than speeches, evidence without commentary. What is shown must be discerned, not decoded. Biblically, places of confinement are rarely random. Prisons, pits, and sealed chambers appear repeatedly as locations where judgment is delayed, not erased. Those confined are not forgotten. They are restrained until an appointed time. When markings remain, it indicates remembrance. Nothing is lost. Nothing is overlooked. The fear etched into these walls does not scream. It endures. It waits. It testifies that something occurred here that was never meant to be retold casually. The stone bears witness where voices were silenced. As darkness settles over the Euphrates, the activity does not fade, it intensifies. Residents living near the river report sounds emerging after midnight. Low groans, sharp metallic cries, and prolonged screams that rise from the direction of the water itself. These sounds do not drift like wind or echo like wildlife. They appear suddenly, hold steady for minutes at a time, and then stop as abruptly as they began, leaving behind an unnatural silence. Multiple witnesses describe the same pattern. The sounds are strongest during the deepest hours of night, when human movement is minimal. They do not follow weather changes or river flow. Some residents have attempted to record them, but playback often fails to capture the full depth or intensity described by those present. The recordings sound flat, incomplete, as if the source resists being fully documented. Fear spreads quickly in places where sound defies explanation. Locals now avoid the river after sunset. Fishing stops early. Children are kept indoors. Entire villages grow quiet as night falls. Not out of routine, but out of caution. Silence becomes a form of protection. Scripture repeatedly associates the night with moments of divine movement. Deliverance, too, emerges when human activity ceases and awareness sharpens. The Bible speaks of the deep responding before release of waters roaring, crying out, or reacting when restraint is nearing its limit. These sounds are not described as chaos, but as response. Importantly, the cries are not constant. They come in intervals, suggesting not randomness, but sequence. Something stirs, then withdraws. Something responds, then restrains itself again. This pattern mirrors biblical accounts where forces are bound but not destroyed, aware of time but unable to act freely. Scientific explanations struggle here. Animals do not produce metallic resonance. Water does not scream. Geological shifts produce rumbling, not vocal-like cadence. The witnesses describe tone changes, rises and falls, as if intention were present. The reaction of the community supports this distinction. People do not flee storms this way. They flee presence. In Scripture, sound often precedes manifestation. Trumpets before revelation, cries before judgment, groaning before release. Creation does not speak in words, but it does respond audibly when divine boundaries are approached. The river, long associated with prophecy and restraint, now behaves as though it senses change. What makes these reports more unsettling is their timing. They coincide with seismic activity, newly exposed caverns, and visible changes in animal behavior. Alone, they might be dismissed. Together, they form alignment. This is not about fear, it is about recognition. When the night itself becomes vocal, attention is required. If you sense that these events are connected, take a moment to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay informed as this pattern continues to unfold. Certain areas near the newly fractured sections of the river have been abruptly sealed off. Roads are blocked. Access points disappear overnight. Locals report military or government personnel stationed near zones that were once freely traveled. No official explanations are offered. No public briefings clarify the reason. Silence replaces transparency. Media access in these regions becomes limited or entirely denied. Journalists attempting to approach restricted areas are turned away or warned not to proceed. Affected communities receive instructions without context. Do not approach the river. Avoid specific locations. Remain indoors after dark. These directives are not framed as safety advisories tied to natural disasters. They are enforced with urgency, as though exposure itself poses a risk.